We have Scott on, Scott Masse of Dynamic Natural Resources, and that is ticker symbol DYNI, It's easy to remember, DYNI, excuse me. And as soon as I get the word, we'll bring him up, and I get the word. Scott, this is Saul Albom, Market News First. How you doing?
Hey, Sal. How are you, buddy?
It is a good day today. Market's not down or up about 5,000 points. So, I'm not a big fan of that kind of huge volatility we've been having.
Sure.
Now, I got a question for you before we start talking up, since you're an expert here at oil and gas and such. The price of oil, over the next 6 months, where are you seeing the price of oil?
Well, in the short run, it's always a crapshoot. We're hitting some resistance up in the high 70s, but I think, what I focus on is longer term where the price of oil is going to go and strategize as to how I want to position company assets. And I think no question with the demand today and the projected demand in 10 years where it's going to be, that the long-term picture for oil, it's a fairly easy picture to see that oil goes higher. Longer term, the short-term gyrations, it's anybody's guess. But I think a lot of the geopolitical risks that are inherent in this market today, especially in the Mideast, make it such that the bias is going to be on the high side.
And the same, I imagine you'd say, for natural gas also?
Natural gas, not as much because it's a local asset, but my company is more focused on the oil markets, and thus that's what I focus most of my attention on.
Okay, fair enough. And so you would definitely say that there could be catastrophic events that could potentially drive up the cost of oil with the geopolitical risk?
Well, I think that's always there. There's a tremendous amount of saber rattling going on in the Middle East. We saw that yesterday with the president of Iran, and they don't seem to be backing down in their rhetoric, and that always gives pause to the traders when they hear the type of rhetoric coming out of the Mideast.
Okay. Now, I want you to augment my description of Dynamic Natural Resource. Tell me where I'm right and tell me where I'm wrong.
Sure.
Okay. I like to sum this up and say Dynamic Natural Resources makes money by capitalizing on underused oil wells and has a novel way, environmentally friendly way of getting this oil out of the ground. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, I want you to augment that and tell the potential investors out there and your investors out there the real story. How do you guys make money?
Well, that's a fantastic way to look at it. I like to think of it as removing exploration risk. There are thousands and thousands of wells that have been drilled over the past 50 years. And for every barrel of primary recovery that we've taken out of the ground, most experts agree that there are about 2 barrels behind it. The problem is that much of that was left in the ground, and especially during the times when oil was trading at $8 to $10 a barrel, and when the cost to extract that was higher than where oil was trading. So a lot of those wells were abandoned, and a lot of information and resources were lost on those particular wells at that time, back from, say, after the oil boom in the early 80s up to, say, the recent boom that we've had. So a lot of those wells present a tremendous opportunity to go in and utilize enhanced oil recovery to access that additional additional 2 barrels for every 1 barrel primary recovery that we've seen. So my focus is on utilizing advanced technologies, many of which a lot of the old-timers, it's a very bifurcated industry, especially in the Midwest where I'm at. You've got young guys in their 30s and 40s, and then you've got guys in their 60s through 80s. A whole generation has been blown out of the oil industry because of the 20-year basic recession that we had in the business. And it's unfortunate because it's very difficult to find skilled labor in the markets.
It's funny because there's some young graduates out there that everyone made fun of them going through college that are my age about being in petroleum, and then all of a sudden they're making $80,000 a year at 24 years old. Because you can't get any kids, you can't get anybody.
That's right. I have a number of older gentlemen that are working out on the rigs with me on a weekly basis, and they have the knowledge, and it's hard to duplicate that. So much of the challenge for me as a CEO is retaining and attracting the best labor that I can get. And unfortunately, the younger generation that hasn't been brought up in the oil fields, it's not easy work.
Fair enough. I'd like to talk with you maybe at a later show about how you hold on to talent when there's such a high demand for that, but that's something for another show. Well services, enhanced oil recovery is what we're working on. Now, you have this specific technology. Tell me about this technology.
Well, it's not proprietary. These are technologies that I've sought out, and excuse me, my phone's ringing here. These are technologies that have been readily available in the markets, and unfortunately, many of the old-timers in the business haven't capitalized on these technologies. One, for example, is microbial-enhanced oil recovery, which is the one that you referenced earlier in the show. And that essentially is utilizing biosurfactants, essentially friendly microbes, to eat away at much of the paraffin and iron sulfides and different problems that we have downhole that essentially clog up the inner workings of the well and really restrict flow of oil. And studies have shown that that's actually a more cost-effective and environmentally friendly solution, and thus that's a solution that we look to utilize out in the fields.